start. Abba Yahuwah, I just want to thank you in this day, my Father. Wow. Father, I thank you that 4 years ago, you started to be able to teach this book of Revelation. And 4 years later, you are finally going to get me to be able to come out of that place of where I am so vulnerable before you, Father, to be able to teach a book that is just so much for one to understand, so much for one to comprehend. But I praise and I thank you because this is the time, this is the hour. You said at the appointed time, this book shall be opened and this book shall be revealed. And Father, I thank you that I will take it step by step as you lead me along the way, Father. That this is not about my revelation, this is not about my understanding, this is the revelation of Yeshua. And this book has been written for his bond servants. And his bond servants in the hour that we are in now have this time now. This is the time, this is the hour for his bond servants to have this revelation being opened to them so that they may be able to walk in this revelation. Father, this is exactly a book like it was spoken of the Torah. That the Torah was to be meditated on, that it was to be meditated on day and night, and to do everything that has been written in it. And it's interesting. Just like there's a blessing to those who hear and do the Torah, there is a blessing to those who hear and do this book. So interesting how we finished the Torah. We finished reading Torah, which is everything about the foundation of your instructions that you have given. And now that is where you start with us as Aleph. And where we are busy now, you are opening up to us Genesis, so that we may be able to have a deeper understanding of Bereshit, to understand the door of Bereshit. What you have opened up for us. The understanding that we have of the deeper revelation of what is written in the first few chapters of the book of Genesis. In order for us to be able to understand what it means to be able to have the book of Revelation being able to solidify within our hearts, because you start with us. You are the Aleph and you are the Tav. You started with us as Aleph in Genesis, and you will end with us as Tav in the book of Revelation. You are Abba Yahuwah, the one that is the Aleph, and it's Yeshua, the one that is the Tav, the one that is going to be revealed to us through this book, the one that we are going to come to have a deeper revelation of. The one that is not just the meek and gentle lamb, but the one who's going to come as the judge of the nations of the world. And so, Abba, I praise and I thank you because I understand that this is a tall order. I understand that you have spoken in this word to say that we are not to add to this book what is not there. And we are not to take away from it either. And so, Father, I thank you that you just helped me to be able to humbly walk before you and being able to just reveal that which is to be revealed, because that is what we need to understand. It is revelation. It's to reveal that which has been hidden, that which has been kept from us. Now is the time to be revealed. And Abba, I just come as a servant before you, humbling myself and saying, Father, in myself, in me, I don't know anything. In me, I don't know how to teach this book. But with the understanding and the revelation that you have given by your sevenfold Spirit, the Spirit that is upon the sevenfold Spirit that is upon Yeshua, you will give us the wisdom, the understanding, and the knowledge that we need to be able to open up this book to us. And so I thank you, Father, that we embark on this journey. I thank you that we embark on a journey knowing that it's only you that is the one who's going to take us step by step, just as you did and just as you are doing in Genesis, just as you have done throughout the Torah portions that we have read every week. You have revealed your heartbeat and your revelation and your prophetic utterances that came every week from the Torah portions that we read. And now it is the time to reveal the one who is the sign, the one who is the mark, the one who is the nailed at the stake for us. And for us as your servants to understand that we may be blessed by not only listening to or reading this book, but by guarding it and keeping it. And there are things in this book that is so significant to us now, in the very hour and the minute that we are in, to know, so that we may be able to know the way forward, to be able to keep ourselves in this time of the destruction of the enemy. Knowing what we stand for will limit what we fall for. But if we stand for nothing, we will fall for everything. And so I thank you, Abba Yahuwah. I thank you, Father, that you are the one that is going to reveal to us, your people, your revelation. That which was given to John on the island of Patmos, that most beautiful place. And so I thank you, Abba Yahuwah, that you open up the mind of our understanding, that you open up our hearts in order to be able to have your heartbeat beating with our heartbeat, your mindset becoming our mindset of that which you want to speak to us in this day. I praise and I thank you for this in Yeshua's precious mighty name. Amen. Amen. So praise Abba. You know, the Father spoke to me through the mouth of a prophet in 2010. And I actually went to look at it again yesterday, last night. I was looking at my 2010 journal. And in August of 2010, this prophet came and he spoke to me and he said, the Father is going to open up to you his revelation, the revelation of his Son, and he's going to open up to you the revelation of the book of Revelation, and you will teach his people the book of Revelation. And the Father will open up the scriptures to you, and the Father will reveal the deeper revelation of the scriptures so that you may teach his people. Now that was 11 years ago. And I have had no desire at all to go and rush and want to teach the book of Revelation. Because a few years ago, I went to a friend, and when we were there, we went for Shabbat, and then he started sharing with me something about the book of Revelation, and he started arguing with me about something to do with this book of Revelation, and he was reading, I can't even remember which chapter it was, but he was reading this specific chapter, and I don't know if it was chapter 12 or what it was, and he was reading things that wasn't written there. And I said, where do you get this from? No, this is the way it is. And he was trying to convince me. And I said to him, but where do you get this from? I don't see that written in the, in those verses. And then I understood he was trying to convince me about somebody else's teaching that he had listened to on the book of Revelation. And this was something that they had been speaking. And I said to him, I'm sorry, I don't see that there. And the more he tried to argue with me, I said to him, you know what, I'm sorry, I'm not going to argue with you. I'm not going to take what you say because I don't see that there. And when I got home, it was about midnight. And at that time, Father tells me go read the book of Revelation. I said, Father, I'll do it tomorrow. Right now, it's 12 o'clock at night. And I don't think this is the hour to go and read the book of Revelation at midnight on a Friday night. And he said, you go read the book of Revelation now. So I embarked to go and read the whole of the book of Revelation at that time of the morning, to come to the end. And when I came to the end, Father had me read the whole book to open up 2 verses to me. And so I'm going to start with the end before I start with the beginning. And it's for eyewitness, and it's in Revelation chapter 22, verses 18. And it says, for I witness to everyone hearing the words of the prophecy of this book. If anyone adds to them, Yahuwah shall add to him the plagues that are written in this book. And if anyone takes away from the words of this book of this prophecy, Yahuwah shall take away his part from the book of life and out of the set apart city which are written in this book. And those 2 verses was enough to put the fear of Yahuwah within me to say, I don't think I will be so quick to want to go and teach the book of Revelation. Because those 2 verses scare me, and they should scare you. Because at the end of the day, he's saying he will remove your name from the book of life. He says, for I witness to everyone hearing the words of this prophecy. If anyone adds to them, Yahuwah shall add to him the plagues that are written in this book. So he's going to add the plagues of this book to the people that are going to add to this book. And for those who want to take away, he says, I will take away from the words of, if anybody takes away from the words of this prophecy, Yahuwah shall take away his part from the book of life. Now, do you understand why this is such a difficult thing for me to do? And I can tell you now, there is no way that I will sit and do this if this has not been instructed by Abba Yahuwah. And there is no way that I would be doing this if I didn't already have prophetic word. And it's interesting because when I was listening to the teaching that I did on chapter 1 4 years ago, I had just a month before been told, so I don't know when it was, what time of the year it was when I was doing this, but I was speaking, and while I was speaking, the Father had spoken in a dream, and in my dream he told me that I was to teach the book of Revelation. And it had been a month since he told me to do that, and I had not even ventured into the book of Revelation. And then I had a young man that came to me at the fellowship that I used to be in, and he came to me and he said to me that please will you come and sit with myself and a friend and teach us the book of Revelation. And then I laughed and I said, oh, Father's got such a sense of humor, because he knows that I wouldn't just do this, so now he brings someone that wants me to teach it. And a month ago, when I was in the Cape and we were there in Plettenberg Bay on the beach, and we were busy praying. And as I was praying, the same prayer that I prayed, interesting enough, as I opened up this, the teaching that I did and what I prayed, that he started with us as Aleph and Tav, and that I said that he had revealed himself to us in the book of Genesis as Aleph. And as I was busy praying that on the beach, he said, and now it's time for you to do Tav, which is the book of Revelation. And when you finished, and he said to me, when you finish the Torah portions, you are now going to teach on the book of Revelation. And I got such a fright, because I thought, oh, Father. But I know that this is his will and this is the timing for it. So I started 4 years ago. But now it is the time. It's the time, it's the season. And so let us start Revelation. What does Revelation mean? Revelation in the Hebrew is hazon. It means hazon, and that is why if we take our book and our Bible says hazon, chazon, chazon. But if we look at it in the concordance, it is apocalypsis. And that is the Greek word for it is apocalypsis. And that is why in many Bibles it's written and it's read as the book of Apocalypse. Even in Portuguese it's apocalypse. And so that is the Greek word, and it comes from G602. And what does that apocalypse really mean? It means laying bare. It means making naked. It means a disclosure of truth. It means instructions. Things that are sealed that are now made visible. So it's the manifestation, it's to appear and to lay open that which was veiled or covered up. So it's to bring the appearance. It's to bring the appearance and to lay open that which was veiled or covered up. It is to disclose, and it's to make bare, make known what was before unknown. And it's to reveal. So the Father wants to reveal. And He's going to be making known to us. He wants to make visible to us that which is sealed, that which was disclosed, that which now needs to be made manifest. So you see, that's why I'm saying this is the appointed time. This is the appointed time for us to be able to work through this book. Because many people have been working through this book for very long. And even when I was on the island of Patmos 2 years ago, exactly 2 years ago, last month, we were sitting on the island of Patmos, and I taught on this book for 9 hours. But for the life of me, most of it I didn't understand, and I made it very clear to them, and I said to them, I will teach what I know, and what I don't know, I don't know. What is revealed, I will reveal. What is hidden, I don't know. But one of the things that the Father said to me, and this was in September of 2019. And when we sat on that island of Patmos, in the very place where the revelation was given to Yochanan, a servant of Abba Yahuwah, Father said to me, this book will be opened up before your very eyes. This book will be made manifest before your very eyes. This book will be revealed before your very eyes. You will see it unfolding before your very eyes. Little did we know that 2 years later, to where we sit right now, this book is being opened up to us before our very eyes. More of this book now makes sense to us than what it did before. And you see, the most important thing that the Father said to me then, in 2019, when we were on the island of Patmos, I said, the most important thing is not that we understand everything that is in it. The most important thing is that we read it, to be able to have a revelation of it, in terms of reading it and knowing things that is in it and meditating on it. Not that we necessarily understand it all, because we're not going to understand until it's made manifest. Because it's got to be made manifest. It's got to be revealed. It's got to be opened up. And it's only going to be revealed and opened up as the things start to play before our very eyes. And we're starting to see a lot of it being made manifest that we didn't understand before. And so, this is what the revelation is. But what revelation? So from Revelation 1 verse 1 says, the revelation of Yeshua, Mashiach. So what is this whole book about? This whole book is about the revelation of Yeshua. Yeshua wants to reveal himself through the book of Revelation. So by the time we get to the end of this book, I am sure we should have a deeper understanding and a deeper revelation of our Messiah, who He is, what He's about to do. Not just the Messiah that we have read from Genesis to the end of Jude. Because when we get to the book of Revelation, we understand a Messiah that is a different Messiah to the one that has been revealed to us throughout the rest of this book. Because the one that is being revealed in the book of Revelation is a Messiah that is coming as one who's going to come and judge the nations of the world. He is not the meek, gentle lamb. He's going to come as a judge. He's going to come as the one who is going to roar like the lion of the tribe of Yehudah. He is not the gentle lamb that has been given to us from when we've come to be able to read the New Testament. So this book of Revelation is going to reveal to us who Tav is. Who is this one that is, he starts with us as Aleph, is going to end with us as Tav. He is the first, he is the last. And we're going to look at that in more detail, because more than once he speaks in the book of Revelation about him being the Aleph, about him being the Tav. So he starts with us as Aleph, but he's going to end with us as Tav. And that is what he wants to reveal. So we look at, this is the revelation of Messiah Yahushua, which Allah gave to show His servants. Okay, so this is now where we're going to spend time. So you need to understand, we are not going to rush through this book. We're not going to rush through it. We have time. And we're not going to rush through this book. Because there are things that we're going to, there's things that maybe I'm going to read and I don't have the revelation of it, and we're going to read it and we're not going to understand it. But there are other things that we are going to be able to go deep into, because we need to understand, who is this book written for? So number one, we have established this book is about the revelation of Messiah Yeshua. Number two, who is this book written to? This book is written to His servants. It's to show His servants what has to take place with speed. And He sanctified it by sending His messenger to His servant Yochanan. So understand, this is written to His servants, but He gave it to His servant Yochanan. So just like Yochanan was a servant, this book has been written for the servants. So we need to understand, what is a servant? Because how do we understand who this book is written for? So you see, there's many people teaching this book. There's many people reading this book. But who is this book for? This book says clearly, it is to show His servants what is to take place. So His true servants are the ones who will have the understanding and the revelation of this book. So what does it mean to be a servant? Who are the servants that he's speaking about? So in Greek, the word servant is the word doulos. And it's G1401, concordance number G1401. Doulos. And that is a slave, bondman. So it's a slave, it's a bondman. Metaphorically, one who gives himself up to another's will. Now, we got to really understand this. It's one who's going to give himself up to another's will. Those whose service is used by Messiah in extending and advancing His cause. So understand, the people who this book is written for, these people who this book is going to be revealed to, are those that have laid down their lives for the one who is going to reveal Himself in this book. This is about Him. And why should He reveal Himself, or why should He reveal this book to a people that have not laid down their lives for Him, for a people who are not about His cause? So understand, they are a people, the servant is a person that is putting another one's will above their own. So they are laying down their will for his will. They're laying down their agenda for his agenda. They are laying down their kingdom for his kingdom. So it is one who's advancing. They are extending and advancing Messiah's cause, which is his kingdom, among men. So in this world that we're living in, they are advancing and they are extending his cause. So they are all about his kingdom. They are not about their own kingdom. They are not here to build their own little castle, their own little homes, and their own little things. They are here to build his kingdom. They are here to lay down their lives, to advance his purpose and his plan for what is to be done in this time. It says, to devote to another, to disregard of one's own interests. So at the end of the day, these servants of those that have disregarded their own interests, they're not about their own agenda. They're not about their own interests. They're not about me, myself, and I. They're not about me, my family, and myself. It's not about that. They are not about themselves. They have laid down their cause for the cause of Yahuwah. And this is already what we have discussed in last week's as we ended the Torah portion. That I spoke and I said, who are these priests? Who are these servants that Yeshua spoke about? The one who will leave mother, father, brother, sister, child, home, everything for his sake, including wife or husband if need be, to follow him. What did he say to his disciples? Leave everything and follow me. Are we prepared to leave everything and follow him? Because those are the servants. So a servant, an attendant, to be bound, it means to where you are bound, to tie, to fasten oneself to another person. So it's like a husband and a wife that are bound and tied by covenant to one another. They cannot make a plan. I mean, I cannot go ahead and do something without first consulting my husband. My husband cannot do things without first consulting me. We are in a covenant, we are in a marriage, and we are bound to one another in covenant, and therefore we do not make our own plans, we do not make our own, we don't make our own things, we will consult one another. But how many of us really do that? How many of us really consult the Father before we do something? Because we have this free will and we are the king of our castle. And wow, this morning I listened to one of the most powerful teachings that I've heard on really understanding Satanism and a satanic agenda. And this teaching was so powerful. I am going to definitely be sending it out, because you see, a Satanist is a person that is on their own throne and they do their own thing, because that is serving Hasatan. Hasatan is about himself and his kingdom. And the people that are in his kingdom, whether they are believers or whether they are not, if they are serving themselves, they serve his purpose. This was such a revelation for me this morning. And then when it came together with this teaching, I realized, oh my Father, you see, that's why Yeshua went and washed feet. That's why Yeshua wanted servants that were going to serve him and his cause. Not their own cause, but his cause. Not their own building their own kingdoms, but his kingdom. Not trying to get the fame and the fortune for themselves, but that it's all about him and his kingdom. I then understood it so well, what it truly means to be a bondservant. You see, because a bondservant is a person that will live out his life, making sure he lives out his purpose for Yeshua, for Abba Yahuwah. That his whole life is lived out for him to fulfill the purpose and the plan that Yeshua and Abba Yahuwah has ordained for their lives. That is what they're called to do. When you are a bondservant to Yeshua, you disregard your life and you live dedicated totally to him. So he doesn't care how much you pray. He doesn't care how much you read the Bible. He cares is how much are you dedicated to obeying him and his cause. So there's many people that are very, very well-to-do will read and spend hours in his word and pray. But how much of his word do they actually put into practice? You see, a bondservant lays down their life. And a bondservant, even if it's difficult to what that word says, they will do it. A bondservant is willing to leave all to follow the king. He's willing to lay down his life. And that is why it's for those people that it's written, because in Revelation chapter 12, we're going to get there, they did not love their lives. They were sold out for him. They had the testimony of Yeshua. They had the power of his blood, and they did not love their lives unto death. That is a servant. A servant does not love his life unto death. A servant is there to serve his master. Only his master. He obeys his master's voice. He obeys his master's word. And this is how he lives. There's no other way. And this is something to really meditate on. This is something to really think about, because that makes the pool of who servants are very small. It's really a remnant. That's why the Bible keeps talking about a remnant. Because when we really look deep into the words, we understand what the words mean. Then we understand that it's not all Christians that are servants. So let's look at Mark 9, verse 35. Let's go look at Mark 9:35. Mark 9:35 says, and sitting down, he, Yeshua, called the 12 and said to them, if anyone wishes to be first, he shall be last of all and servant of all. Are we a servant of all? Are we prepared to lay down our lives for other people? Are we prepared to lay down our lives for others? Are we prepared to lay down our lives for him? Because that is what he's saying. So those who wish to be first are going to be last. And he says, anyone who wishes to be first, he shall be last and servant of all. So we must be prepared to be last and servant of all. Let us look at John chapter 13. John chapter 13, we look at verses 12, and from verses 12 to 16, what does he say? This is when Yeshua is sitting now, and he's having his last supper with his disciples, before he's going to go to the Garden of Gethsemane. So this is what I always speak. This supper that he had and the things that he spoke was so important, because this is what he's saying to his disciples. And this is for us, of what they needed to understand was going to come, and what we need to understand is going to come, and how we need to live our lives. So he says, so when he had washed their feet, so he now comes and he meets to wash their feet, and Peter still sits and says, no, you can't wash my feet. Let's just read the account from the beginning, from where he says, verse 4. From verse 3. Yeshua, knowing that the Father had given all into his hands, and that he had come from Elua and was going to Elua, rose from supper and laid aside his garments, and having taken a towel, he girded himself. After he put water into a basin and began to wash the feet of the taught ones, to wipe them with the towel with which he was girded. So do you see, our Messiah goes and washes feet. Our Messiah becomes the first of all, servant of all. He becomes the servant of all. He is there to serve his disciples. And he came to Shimon Kepha and said to him, Master, do you wash my feet? Yeshua answered and said to him, You do not know what I am doing now, but you shall know after this. Kepha said to him, By no means shall you wash my feet ever. Yeshua answered him, If I do not wash you, you have no part with me. So you see, Yeshua had to first become a servant and wash their feet, so that we could take part in what he has done and become like him. Shimon Kepha said to him, Master, not my feet only, but also my hands and my head. Yeshua said to him, He who has had a bath does not need to wash except his feet, but is clean altogether. And you are clean, but not all of you. For he knew who would deliver him, and so he said, You are not all clean. So when he had washed their feet, and taken his garments and sat down again, he said to them, Do you know what I have done to you? You call me teacher and master, and you say, Well, for I am. For if I, master and teacher, have washed your feet, you also ought to wash one another's feet. For I gave you an example that you should do as I have done to you. So do you see, Messiah Yeshua doesn't just come to be able to be the one who delivers us and washes us of our sin. He comes to be a servant, to serve us, so that we in turn may serve each other, and so that we in turn may serve him. But you see, we seem to have this understanding that when we pray, he's there to serve us. Lo and behold, let us not by any means go and lay down our lives for him, because every prayer must be about what he must do for me. Don't ever let me go and sit and pray a prayer where I need to lay down, because that is not what was taught us. Everything that was taught us, especially while I was being taught in Christianity, it was how he must serve me, how he must do for me. And all my prayers were centered around do for me. Me. Me being on the throne. Not about me laying down anything. Not about me dying in my flesh. And then I rebuke the devil all day. And meantime, behind the scenes, there might be some things that I maybe need to be able to submit and surrender. The devil has only as much authority over me as what I give him. So at the end of the day, Father is taking us through many tests and many trials because we need to learn to submit and to surrender. That is why I was just sharing with someone 2 days ago. And I was sharing with them how the books that I started reading were those of the first men's of faith, like your Charles Finney, like your Charles Spurgeon, like your Andrew Murray. Their books were centered on dying to your flesh man. That you need to chastise the flesh man. That you need to subdue your flesh man. But the gospel that today we've been given, which was the video that I watched this morning, made so much sense because that is so contrary to the gospel that we have today. The gospel that we have today is all about self-centeredness, about me getting more, about me giving more, about serving. I need to be served because I'm certainly not there to serve. And this is the false satanic gospel that has been given us. It's a satanic agenda. It's what has come because that is everything about what Hasatan is about. And not about one that is to lay down. That is why this is about the revelation of Yeshua. And I am not going to rush this because I'm going to make sure that Abba's made sure that I need to understand, that we need to understand what servants are. And we need to understand Yeshua was the greatest servant of all. He was willing to die for me and you and all. Are we willing to do the same? Because he's going to say, listen to what he says here. For I gave you an example that you should do as I have done to you. So you see, I have given you an example that you should do as I have done to you. Truly, truly, I say to you, a servant is not greater than his master, nor is an emissary greater than he who sent him. If you know these teachings, blessed are you if you do them. Not if you listen to them, but if you do them. So what does the Father want? He wants us to understand, just as He was going to lay down His life, there might be a time that maybe the Father's going to require you to lay down your life for another person. Or He's going to need you to lay down your life for Him, just like He laid down His life for you. We need to understand, no servant is greater than his master. If he was persecuted, if he was spat on, if he was whipped, chastised, so shall we be. And we need to understand that if this is what is going to be required of us, we better put on that mantle to understand that we are a servant as he was. And if he went to the stake and had to die, we might be required to go to a stake and die for him. Not just this understanding of, I'm not going to go through anything. Because you see, when I was in Christianity, I was praying away everything. I never wanted to go through anything. I mean, I had the one woman that I was once speaking about how we need to be able to go through things. And she said, no. Yeshua came and he paid the price. I don't need to suffer for anything. And I looked at her and I thought, what gospel have you received? What gospel have you received that you don't need to suffer anything? Go tell the people of the Church of China, have they suffered for their faith? Go tell the people that was now in Afghanistan, did they have to suffer for their faith? Go and ask them. But we seem to have this understanding that we don't need to suffer for anything. Well, that is why the book of Revelation is going to open up to us, to understand that there's things that we might have to be going through. We're going to suffer hunger. We're going to be scorched by the sun. We are going to maybe go through thirst. We are going to go through many things. But if it's for the glory and the honor of his name, then that is what we are going to go through. Because we are not greater than our master. I do not know one disciple that did not have to suffer. John was on this beautiful island of Patmos as a prisoner. And so there is always a suffering that comes with a glory. He first became the suffering servant to become the conquering king. He came as a suffering servant and is coming again as the conquering king. But he came as a suffering servant. Let us read John chapter 15, verses 12 to 14. This is my command, he says. This is my command, that you love one another as I have loved you. No one has greater love than this, that one should lay down his life for his friends. Are we willing to lay down our lives for our friends? Did that say that it's only family? Oh, I will lay down my life for my child, but I will not lay down my life for a friend. I won't even lay down my life for one that has persecuted me. We are called to lay down our lives. And he says, no one has greater love than this, that one should lay down his life for his friends. You are my friends if you do whatever I command you. So at the end of the day, we need to learn to lay down our lives for friends, and friends are those who obey his commands. So if these are people that are walking in the Father's ways, and the Father asks you to lay down your life for that one, then that is what you need to do. Lay down your life for those friends, because they lay down their lives for him. Let's go to Jude 1 verse 1. Jude. Let's look again. We're going to go a little bit deeper into servant, because we need to understand what is a servant. Because if you don't understand what a servant is, how are we going to understand who this book is written for? How are we going to understand who is he going to reveal this book to? He's not going to reveal this book to just a Christian. He's going to reveal this book to his servants. And there's a difference between a servant and just a mere Christian. Yehuda, a servant of Yahuwah, of Yeshua. So you see, John was a servant of Yeshua. Yehuda is a servant of Yeshua. So you see, we need to understand, these disciples are his servants. They are those that have denied themselves, picked up their cross, and followed him wherever he goes. Not just because they call themselves a Christian. And the brother of Yaakov, to those who are called. Okay, so here we are looking at three kinds of things we're going to look over here. Yehuda, a servant of Messiah, the brother of Yaakov, to those who are called, set apart by Yahuwah, the Father, and preserved in Messiah Yeshua. So this is, who are his servants? His servants are those who are called, they are those that are set apart, and they are those that are preserved. So we need to see, who are these called, preserved, set apart? So let's go look at this called, preserved, set apart. So a servant are those who are called, set apart, preserved. Who is this book written for? This book is written for his servants. And how do we know the understanding of this book? Because the understanding of this book is revealed to his true servants. So let's look at the first one, called. Who is a called person? Who is called? That's the word kletos in Greek. It is the word G2822. And they are those that are called and invited. So they are called and they are invited. You cannot go to a wedding without an invitation. How do you just pitch up at a wedding? There's that parable that says that those that came to the wedding that didn't have the wedding garment on, they were thrown outside because you had to have a wedding garment. You cannot arrive at a wedding feast if you didn't have an invitation. You can't just go pitch up at a wedding. Wherever you see there's cars and there's a wedding and you just arrive and they're going to say, where's your invitation? Because your name is on a table that is where you're supposed to be seated. So your seat has been allocated to you. And you are at a banquet because you've been invited. So if you are called and you are chosen, you are invited. So you see, there were many that were maybe called, but they did not choose to follow. That's why when he went out, he gave out the invitations for a wedding. And then many of the people had excuses. So he went along the byways and the highways and went and invited those to the wedding. And then right at the book of Revelation, in Revelation chapter 19, when we get there, he's going to have a wedding feast. And he says in Revelation 19 verses 7, let us be glad and rejoice and give praise, for the marriage of the supper, the marriage of the Lamb has come. And his wife prepared herself. And to her it was given to be dressed in fine linen, clean and bright. For fine linen is the righteousnesses of the set apart one. So you see, their wedding garments was not a wedding garment that they were just given. Their wedding garments was fine linen, but that fine linen that they were dressed with, that they were clothed with, was the righteousnesses of Yahuwah. And he said to me, right, blessed are those who have been called. See, you've got to be called to the marriage supper of the Lamb. And he said to me, these are the true words of Yahuwah. So you see, those are the called. The called are those that have been invited. So you see, you've got to be invited to the marriage supper of the Lamb. So it's not everybody that's going to be invited. You need to receive the invitation. And this must be a called one. But who is a called one? You got to be called. But that called one had on clothes. They didn't just arrive there with their own apparel. They didn't just arrive there with their own clothing. They were clothed in fine white linen. And that was the righteousness. So you see, are we the righteous? Like Noah, like Abraham. They were righteous before the Father. So who are these called? They are divinely selected and appointed. He gave them the invitation to the wedding feast. Yeshua invites them to the wedding. So why are they called? Because they are the set apart. Let's look at the second one. So they are called and set apart. So what makes them set apart? That is the word hagiazo, G37, hagiazo. And set apart means to separate from profane things. Wow, I can think of many profane things in this world right now. There are many things that are profane in the world, but we partake of it, and we watch it, and we are entertained by it. So they are set apart from that which is profane, and they are dedicated to Yahuwah. They have become cleansed. They've cleansed themselves externally, which means they don't look like the world. They don't behave like the world. They don't act like the world. They have cleansed themselves externally. So if people will look at you, they see that there's something different about you. You don't just blend in with the rest of the world. You have been cleansed. You're not looking like the rest of the world does. They are purified internally. So you see, they cleanse themselves externally and they purify themselves internally. So they cleanse themselves externally, meaning they are not going to eat like the world eats. So they have gone and they have looked at Torah and they understand what's clean, what's unclean. They don't drink what the world drinks. They don't eat what the world eats. They are eating and drinking set apartness. They are set apart. They are pure, they are holy before the Father. And then they purify themselves internally by renewing their soul, which is the mind, the will, and the emotions. So their mind, their will, and their emotions is wholly and conformly lined up with the will of the Father. So they are being transformed by the renewing of their mind. They don't just read the Word, they read the Word, meditate on the Word, and put it into practice to change their lifestyle, to change who they are. So it's to be made holy. It's to be purified. It's to be consecrated. It's to be holy. It's to be sanctified. How many times have we gone through this? How many times has the Father said, be set apart as I'm set apart. Be holy as I'm holy. Every time I go through the same explanation. But we're going to keep going through the same explanation until we're finally going to understand what set apartness is. No profanity. Clean yourself up from the things of the world. You can't continue to be doing what the world does and someone is looking at you and saying, oh, well, you know what? This person is definitely one who serves the Father. But they're still doing what the world does. You can't do that. You see, when I was in the world, I was drinking, I was smoking, I was swearing, I was doing everything that the world does. And those were the first things externally that the Father cleaned up. I can't say that I was cleaned internally because within my heart there was still much wickedness. So there are those that will clean the heart first and then eventually clean the external things. There are those that externally they clean up quickly first. I mean, I got rid of those external things quickly first. Got rid of the swearing and the drinking and the smoking and those things. Those things went straight away. I knew if I received the Holy Spirit within me, I cannot continue to do these things. It's profane. And immediately I laid it down. But it's taken me 21 years to clean the wicked heart. Because this heart of mine is wicked. And who knows it? None other than my Father. And why does He keep bringing me tests? For me to be exposed, my wicked heart to myself. Because I don't know what's in my heart until I get exposed. So I get put in a test, and then when the test presents itself, then I realize, oh my goodness, look at me, I'm actually quite selfish. And look at me, I'm actually quite evil in my way that I just thought right now. And look at me, I'm still in judgmental, I'm still judging, I'm still carrying on, there's still so much wickedness in me, Abba Yahuwah. And so praise the Father for the tests in the wilderness, because the tests in the wilderness reveal my wicked heart to me, so that I may be set apart. So this is what it means to be a servant. This is who we are called to be. So we are called to be called, we are called to be set apart. Then we are preserved. Now the word preserved is the word terio. That is to attend to carefully, to take care of, to guard. So what does he tell us to take care of? What does he tell us to guard? To keep. What are we called to keep? It's to keep one in state in which he is to observe, keeping your eye upon. So what are we called to keep our eye upon? What are we called to keep? What are we called to guard? What are we called to view attentively? To guard for oneself. What are we called to keep? What are we called to guard? What are we called to observe? The precepts of Abba Yahuwah's Mosaic law. We are called to keep his Torah. We are called to keep his law. We are called to keep his commands. We are called to observe. We are called to keep. That is preserved. So who is a servant? One who is called. They're going to get they're called. Because they have chosen. Many are called, few choose. They have been called because they've made the choice to follow the Father, to be set apart, and to be able to be preserved, because they're going to be willing to be obeying his commands. That is the three criteria for a servant. To be called, to be set apart, to be preserved. Kletos, hagioso, terio. Called, set apart, preserved. Let us continue to read. You see, just on Revelation chapter 1, verse 1, this is how far we've gone. Almost an hour's teaching just on Revelation 1, verse 1. Do you understand? That's why I'm saying this is not something that we are going to have to rush through. Because if you don't build a foundation, then how do you go forward? Because it's easy to just read and say, oh, written to the servants. Who are the servants? What is the criteria of a servant? And they are those, verse 2, who bore witness to the word of Yahuwah and the witness of Yeshua Messiah to all he saw. So you see, this is written to Yochanan, who is the servant, who's going to bear witness of Messiah Yeshua, but he's going to bear witness of the word. So the servants are to bear witness of the word, and they are to bear witness of Messiah Yeshua. So what does it mean? What does it mean to bear witness of the word? What does it mean to bear witness of Messiah Yeshua? You are going to be bearing witness of the word. Witness of the word is his written word. So they are those that worship him in spirit and in truth. Truth is this word, the word that has been given. They bear witness of the word. The word. Yeshua becomes the word manifest in the flesh. But the word was first given to us, written on tablets of stone. That is our foundation. That is this Bible that has been given us, the foundation from Genesis until we receive, until the end of Malachi, until we've got all of that prophets and Psalms and everything. Well, in the other Bibles it's Malachi. And it's the Tanakh in its fullness. It's the Old Testament, which is the foundational covenant in its fullness. It's a foundational covenant. And then we get the renewed covenant, the New Testament, which is now Yeshua made manifest in the flesh. So we follow spirit, Yeshua, because we're going to see he's the seven spirits of Yahuwah. So Yeshua is made up of the seven spirits of Yahuwah. That's the spoken word. That's the spirit. That's the Ruach of Yahuwah that's going to lead and guide us. But we need to be led and guided in the truth of his word. So it's spirit and truth. So it's spirit and truth, the word and the witness. And so, interesting, they followed in Revelation. So you see, we can go to Revelation so many times. We can just keep going back, and we're going to get this step by step. And look what it says in Revelation chapter 15, verses 3. And they sing the song of Moshe. Wow. Singing the song of Moshe is in Deuteronomy chapter 32, where they sing the song of Moshe. That is the song that was given to Moshe. They sing the song of Moshe. So that is your Torah. That's the foundation that you have. And the servant of Yahuwah. And the song of the Lamb. So they follow the Torah, foundational covenant, and truth, and the Lamb, the Spirit, the Ruach of Yahuwah, Yeshua. They follow the Lamb, Yeshua. Saying, great and marvelous are your works, Yahuwah El Shaddai. Righteousness and true are your ways, O sovereign of the set apart ones. See, the set apart ones are the ones that follow Moshe, the song of Moshe, and the Lamb. They have the foundational covenant and the renewed covenant, fullness of the covenant. This is what we need to understand. So we continue to read verse 3. Blessed is he who reads, and those who hear the words of this prophecy, and guard what is written in it, for the time is near. So you see, some people just read there and says, blessed is he who reads. So it's good to read it, because reading it, at least you're going to be able to see. If I hadn't read it, I wouldn't know what's in Revelation chapter 15 to be able to know that that's the song of Moses that is there. If I hadn't read Revelation chapter 21, I wouldn't know that it's written about the wedding supper of the Lamb. And so these things, as we read it, we know what is written in there. But now we go one step further, because it's telling you to guard it. So you see, it's telling you, blessed is he who reads. So interesting. There is a blessing for those that are reading the book of Revelation. So praise Abba Yahuwah. Every Shabbat now, as we've been blessed by reading Torah, because there's two blessings for the books that we read. There's a blessing for reading Torah, and there's a blessing for reading the book of Revelation. So throughout the next couple of weeks, as we are going to be reading the book of Revelation, there is a blessing for us. And so he's saying, blessed is he who reads, and those who hear. So we need to read and we need to hear. What is the word hear? It's the word to listen and obey. It's the word shema. So we need to hear. So we need to read. We need to hear, which means listen and obey the words of the prophecy and guard what is written in it, for the time is near. So do you see why this is for now? Because we need to start to guard. So let's look at this word where he says to guard. So what does it mean to guard? This word guard is the same word as what we read in preserved. It's the word teriu. G5083, the same word, which means to guard, which means to keep. So it's to attend to carefully, to take care of, to guard, to observe, to fulfill a command, to hold fast, to keep watch, to observe, to guard and to keep. So we are to guard and to keep what is written in it. Understand? We are to guard and we are to keep what is written in it. So we are to be able to work through this book, even though we might not have the full understanding. Whatever it is that is being revealed, we ought to be able to guard, we ought to be able to keep. So we ought to understand that if he's saying that this is written for servants, then we ought to understand what is a servant. Because then we ought to be able to understand that we ought to guard and we ought to keep. So we ought to be blessed by reading. So let's look at Joshua 1 verses 6 and 7, which tells us where else are we blessed when we read something. So let's look at Joshua chapter 1 from verse 6. Joshua chapter 1 verse 6 says, be strong and courageous, for you are to let this people inherit the land which I swore to their fathers to give them. Only be strong and very courageous, to guard, to do according to all the Torah which Moshe my servant commanded you. Do not turn from it left or right, so that you act wisely wherever you go. So you see, we were told to guard and to keep the Torah that was given to Moshe. Do not let this book of the Torah depart from your mouth, but you shall meditate on it day and night, so that you guard to do according to all that is written in it, for then you shall make your way prosperous and act wisely. So you see, there is wisdom for those who are going to guard and that are going to keep and that are going to continue to meditate on the book of the Torah. He says that you will act wisely. So what wisdom do we have if we have not meditated on the first 5 books of the book of from Genesis to Deuteronomy, to be able to understand what is Abba Yahuwah's precepts, ordinances? What are we going to be able to then meditate on? That is the foundation that we need. So when we have laid a foundation, how do you know when you're going to get to Revelation? So now I ask you, when you get to Revelation chapter 15, verses 2, which is what I read, when he says that we are to be able to sing the song of Moses. So if we're going to get to Revelation chapter 15, verses 3, and it says, and they sing the song of Moses, how are you going to know what the song of Moses is if you have not read Deuteronomy? So if you have not gone and read Deuteronomy chapter 32, you do not know what the Song of Moses is. So what's the point of you then? You're reading the book of Revelation, you're reading that this is for the set apart ones, but you don't even know what the Song of Moses is. Do you see what I'm saying? You have needed to have built a foundation. And that is why he's saying that this book, there is a blessing. Just like there is a blessing when we are meditating. Blessed are you when you do these commands. Blessed are you entering. Blessings, curses. Blessed are we if we observe and obey. Blessed are we if we're going to hear this book, if we're going to read this book, and we're going to God to keep what is in this book. So there is a blessing. So do you see, we might now not be focusing right now on Torah. We have just focused the whole year on Torah, and we are going to focus on Torah again, but just that we're going to start it at the time of when the new year starts. But now, this is where he wants us to meditate. He wants us to meditate on this, and it's saying, blessed is he who reads, and those who hear the words of the prophecy, and guard what is written in it, for the time is near. Verse 4, Yochanan to the 7 assemblies that are in Asia, favor to you, and peace from him who is and who was and who is coming, and from the 7 spirits that are before his throne. So there we are. Who is the one who was? Who is the one who is? Who is the one who is coming? None other than Yeshua. So we need to understand, in this scripture here alone, it's talking about the 7 spirits. Now, in the book of Revelation here, just in this book, we're reading about the 7 spirits in Revelation 1 verse 4. We're going to read about it in Revelation 3 verse 1, Revelation 4 verse 5, and in Revelation 5 verse 6, he talks about these 7 spirits. So it's important for us to understand what is these 7 spirits. And for that, we need to go and look at Isaiah chapter 11 verse 2. And so we are going to look at Isaiah chapter 11 verse 2 for us to understand these 7 spirits, because it's going to talk to us about the 7 spirits, and Yeshua is made up of these 7 spirits. So let's see. In Isaiah chapter 11 from verses 1 and 2, it says, and a rod shall come forth from the stump of Yeshai, and a sprout. So what is that rod? That rod is a shoot. It is a branch. This is the sprout. From the roots shall be fruitful. From his roots shall be fruitful. The spirit of Yahuwah shall rest upon him. The spirit of wisdom and understanding, the spirit of counsel and might, the spirit of knowledge and the fear of Yahuwah, and shall make him breathe in the fear of Yahuwah. And he shall not judge by the sight of his eyes, nor decide by the hearing of his ears. But with righteousness he shall judge the poor, and shall decide with straightness for the meek ones of the earth, and shall strike the earth with the rod of his mouth, and slay the wrong with the breath of his lips. So you see, this is why he is the one who's coming with the seven spirits, because he needs to judge righteously. And this revelation is about the revelation of Yeshua, and he's going to come with the sword, and he's going to have to judge. And he's the one that is coming. He shall judge the poor, and shall decide with straightness for the meek ones of the earth, and shall strike the earth with the rod of his mouth. Because it says, out of his mouth is going to come this fire, by which he's going to be able to be judging. And there is a sword that comes forth to separate the bone from the marrow, the truth from the lie. Because the sword of the Spirit is the sword of the truth of his word. And he's got to judge righteously according to his word. And shall strike the earth with the rod of his mouth, and slay the wrong with the breath of his lips. Why? Because out of his mouth comes truth. It's the word of truth. And it's the truth. The sword of the Spirit is the sword of the truth of his word that separates the bone from the marrow, the lie from the truth. And the righteousness shall be the girdle of his loins, and the trustworthiness the girdle of his waist. You see, this is the armor. So now we want to put on just this armor. I put on the breastplate of righteousness. I put on the sword. I pick up the sword of the Spirit. I put on the breastplate, the shield of faith. I put on the belt of truth. All of this is the word. We need to be able to stand by the word. It doesn't help you to be able to put on all that armor like a parrot, but you don't put it into practice in your life. You know, this is not a magic potion. This is a word that he says, if you apply it, it has life, and it works, and it's truth, and it comes alive. Because this word comes truth. It's truth. It's alive. It will do what it says it will do. What is impossible with you is possible with Yahuwah. Because if his word speaks it, his word will do it. But we need to believe it. We need to walk in it. And this is the problem. Many people have the knowledge of the word. They have the hearing of the word. But when it comes to putting it into practice, that's another story altogether. So, we need to understand these seven spirits of Yahuwah. There is the spirit of Yahuwah. That is why people are not open to the Ruach, because they have not received the full flow, because they are still in their intellectual mind. They operate from the intellectual mind. They are not flowing by the spirit of Yahuwah, because the spirit of Yahuwah is the one who's got to lead and guide. But many people are still led and guided by their intellectual mind, which is the soul man, which is the knowledge, which is their mind, their will, their emotions. And they're not being led by the spirit of Yahuwah. Because the spirit of Yahuwah is inspiring. It's the state of prophecy. It's the impelling. It's the prophetic utterance. It's the instructions. It's the warning. So the spirit of Yahuwah will give you an unction in your spirit to say, beware. Sometimes you feel this uneasiness. You say, why do I feel so uneasy around this person? I don't understand. There's something scratching in my spirit. Because that is the spirit of Yahuwah showing you. And that's why you'll sit in a conversation and all of a sudden your whole spirit closes up. Because you understand that in this conversation, what has come in? Mind, reasoning, all of that has come in. And it's no longer being flowing by the spirit of Yahuwah. Because it's so easy to allow our reasoning mind to come and take charge. But when the Spirit of Yahuwah is there, there is liberty for Him to be able to move. And there's no limits to Him. We limit ourselves in our mindset. So when the Spirit of Yahuwah is there, it's imparting. He is warlike. There is an energy. There is He executes His ways. There's an administrative power as endowing men with various gifts. That is the Ruach. That is H7307. That is the Spirit of Yahuwah. The Spirit of Yahuwah is the Ruach. It's not a person. It's the Ruach. It's His breath. I mean, where's this mindset that we've come, that they've made it a form? If you take it to what the Hebrew word is, it's Ruach. It's breath. And that breath, like the wind, when the wind comes, it moves. It changes. It moves. It doesn't stand still. And so it endows men with gifts. It energizes our lives. It manifests us with His glory. That is the Ruach of Yahuwah. So there's the 7 spirits. I've read the first one. The Spirit of Yahuwah. That's the first one. Then there's the Spirit of wisdom. That's Chochmah. H2451. That is the Spirit of wisdom. That is Proverbs 3 verses 19. It's the Spirit of wisdom. That is for us to be able to understand the skill that one needs in battle. The skill that one needs to be able to put things in place. The wisdom in administration. Shrewdness. Prudence in religious things. Wisdom in ethical things. That's the Spirit of wisdom. The Spirit of understanding. That's Binah. H998. Binah. That is the Spirit of understanding. That's discernment. That's the discernment when we can discern something that just, something that just doesn't feel right. There's a discernment. There's an understanding. Personified. Perfectly understanding wisdom. So that is a person that has a perfectly understanding of wisdom. Spirit of counsel. Etzah. Eitzah. It's like Eitzah. Eitzah. H6098. That is counsel. That is advice. That is purpose. That's the Spirit of counsel. It's where you're able to give advice, where you're able to open up areas in people's lives and be able to give them purpose in the counsel that needs to come. And that's the counsel of the Father. He is a counselor. Yeshua was a counselor. Spirit of might. That is strength, might, valor. When you have this extreme bravery about you, where you walk in victory, and a person that is able to do mighty deeds of Yahuwah. It's a person that walks in strength, might. They have valor. They're victorious. They are brave. Spirit of knowledge. That's Da'ath. H1847. That's the Spirit of knowledge. That's the knowledge, the perception, the skill, the discernment, the understanding, the wisdom. A person is cunning and aware. So they are aware of things. Their spirit is open to be aware of things. And then there is the spirit of the fear of Yahuwah. And that's the one that we really, really need. That's Yirah. H3374. And that is where we need to fear. We need to fear Yahuwah. We need to be fearing. We need to be in reverence and awe. The fear of Yahuwah brings respect. It brings reverence. It brings piety. That's where we revere Him. where we do not make him a friend, but where we understand he is our Abba Father, and we are to have respect for our parents, and where we are to be able to stand in awe of the fact that he is the creator of the universe. He created everything. He speaks a word and it is done. And we are to fear him. We are not to make him a friend. We are to reverence him. We are to fear him. He's not my friend. We are a friend of Yahuwah, but we are not to make him my friend. Because if you make your father or your mother a friend, you lose respect. And then no matter how old they are, you are to respect them. They are still your parent. And the Bible says, honor your mother and your father. Respect your mother and your father. How much more should we respect our Abba Yahuwah? Fear him. Because in Proverbs 9 verse 10 says, the fear of Yahuwah is the beginning of wisdom, and knowledge of the Holy One is understanding. So it is all tied to fearing him, which is love and respect. And this is the true worship of spirit and truth. You see, this is what Yeshua is made up of, spirit and truth. The truth of the word, and he's the sevenfold spirit. So the fear of Yahuwah is the beginning of wisdom, and knowledge of the Holy One is understanding. So it's all tied to fearing him, which is love and respect. I love him. Therefore, I have that fear in me of the reverence and the respect. And this is the true worship of Yahuwah. And so then we see the fact that he talks about the seven spirits. And now we look at the number seven. Number seven, and this is where we will finish off today, is just looking at number 7. So we're just going to go until Revelation 1 verses 4. So if we look at the number 7, the first time that 7 is mentioned is in Genesis. And if we go to Genesis, when he talks about when he created on the 7th day, he created the earth on the 7th day. And he says in chapter 2, thus the heavens and the earth were completed, and all their array. And in the 7th day, Yahuwah completed his work, which he had made, which he had done. And he rested on the 7th day from all his work which he had made. And Yahuwah blessed the 7th day, set it apart, because on it he rested from all his work which Yahuwah in creating had made. So 7 is the number of completion. It is the number of perfection. That is when he perfected his creation. On the 7th day, he perfected it. This is one of the most significant numbers in the Bible. It is mostly associated with rest and the completed work of Yahuwah, as he rested on the 7th day after completing creation. This is when he brings his perfection, his completion. And it's a significant number. It doesn't just stop there, because how many times throughout this Bible is this word mentioned? Do you know that just in the book of Revelation, 7 is mentioned 50 times? 50 times the number 7 is mentioned in the book of Revelation. More than 700 times it is mentioned in this Bible. More than 700 times. So we need to understand that 7 is Shavah, which also means rest, to be satisfied. So this is a sabbatical rest. So when he was satisfied, when he'd done what he needed to do, when it have enough, when he'd finished what he needed to do, he rested. It was completed. It was perfect. And it also is the sabbatical rest. Every 7th year, there is a sabbatical rest. And then 7 times 7, you have your Jubilee, which is the 7 times 7. Then you enter into the Jubilee year. So it is very much about rest, like the 7th year is a year of rest. The 7th day is a day of rest. So it talks about the rest. There's also 7 colors in the rainbow. There's the 7 Shemitah cycles. It is also symbolic of a person who is humble. Interesting. The 7 spirits comes upon a humble person. Yeshua being the most humble. Laying down. And it's, look at what it says, qualified to serve. So that number 7 is the number that is then qualified to serve. So now the person is qualified to serve. It's the humble person. And Yeshua, the 7 spirits upon Yeshua. And it is also symbolic of the wisdom of above. So 7 makes up the perfection of who he is, in which is Messiah. So 7, the 7 spirits upon Yeshua is the 7 spirits making up Messiah being the perfect. So it is divine perfection. So it is the divine perfection of who Yeshua is. And this is where we're going to end today, because I don't want to make these sessions too long. So we will finish off today with Revelation 1 from verses 4, and then next week we'll pick up from verses 5. And so we need to understand. I just wanted us to be able to understand the first few verses. So it's going to talk about the 7 assemblies. This is going to be about the 7 spirits that is going to be sent to the 7 assemblies. And who are these 7 assemblies? We will look at this when we eventually get to Revelation chapter 2 and 3. But right now we are focused on understanding that this is the 7 spirits that are before his throne. And these 7 spirits before his throne is made up of the 7 spirits, which is what I brought to you, which is the spirit of Yahuwah, the spirit of wisdom. It was the spirit of Yahuwah, the spirit of wisdom, the spirit of understanding, the spirit of counsel, the spirit of might, the spirit of knowledge, the spirit of the fear of Yahuwah. All these, the 7 spirits, which is what we read in Isaiah chapter 11 verses 2, that these are the 7 spirits that are upon Yeshua. And these are the 7 spirits that are before the throne. And we need to understand that these are the 7 spirits that is upon us, because we've received the Ruach of Yahuwah, that is the 7 spirits of Yahuwah. And we need to operate and function in these 7 spirits of Yahuwah. So let us pray. Abba Yahuwah, I just want to thank you, Father. I thank you for your revelation, Abba. I thank you for the revelation of Yeshua. I thank you for revealing to us this revelation is about these servants. And may we be these servants that are the called ones, that are the set apart ones, that are the preserved ones, that are the ones that are going to be able to be invited to the marriage supper of the Lamb. The ones that will have the clothes, that they will be dressed in fine white linen. And these are your set-apart bride. This is your set-apart bride. This set-apart remnant that you are wanting to be able to open up the revelation of this book of Revelation to us. Thank you, Father, for the blessing that we have, that this is a day that we are blessed because you blessed the 7th day, and we are in the 7th day, being blessed by the 7th day, and we have the blessing for reading this book. And I pray, Father, let us be those that are not only going to read and hear, but we are going to be those that are going to be able to guard to do. And so, Father, truly we need to have the understanding of this book, so that as we have the understanding of this book, we may be able to have the understanding of what it means to really walk in the fullness of that which you have ordained for us in this hour, because this book needs to be opened up to us as being the last generation, the one that is going to see this book being unfolded before our very eyes, which is what you said to me on the island of Patmos. We are the generation that is going to see this book unfold before our very eyes. But for us to see this book unfold before our very eyes, do we understand what is going to be required of us in our spirit man, who is going to have to be exceptionally strong so that the flesh man can endure what is going to be seen, what is going to be seen all around us with the destruction that is going to come upon the earth. But Abba, I praise and I thank you that you have given us the Ruach of Yahuwah that has geared us for the battle, that has given us the spirit of the understanding, that has given us the spirit of counsel, that has given us the spirit of might, for us to be able to have the valor that we need, the strength that we need in the days ahead of us. As things are going to get darker and darker upon the earth, as the elite continue with their evil plan to be able to present their master, the one that they want to be able to rule the world. But I thank you, Abba Yahuwah, that we have this book. We have this book. We have this book of revelation that you have given us to be able to know that even though there's going to be a fierce battle, but we know who wins in the end. And what a blessing it is for us to be part of the winning army. And so I praise and I thank you for that which you are going to reveal and unfold to us in the weeks ahead, and for what you have revealed and unfolded to us today. In Yeshua's name, amen.